That was my fencing with my point finger. Alright guys, we're going to continue talking about author's purpose today. And we are inferring author's purpose. And what that means is I can infer why a text was written. Why did the author write that text? What's the point? Is this person wasting my time? What are they doing? It's important to understand what an author is trying to convey because it helps you figure out exactly what the author is trying to say. It helps you understand what you should be looking for, what kind of clues you should be looking for to figure out maybe this text is for persuading me, maybe it's for informing me, maybe it is for entertaining me. Today, we're going to be looking at three things. 1, text features. 2, big idea, details. 3, the format. What does format mean, you may ask? The format is the way something is presented to you. Let me get out of the way of it. Now, you may remember we briefly touched on story elements. It's going to be the third bullet here. I kind of want to, after I was thinking about it and going back to last lesson, I kind of want to back off of story elements, and that's why I've put format on here today. Because I think format is more indicative of what a text might actually consist of. And that just means when you're looking at the way a text is presented to you, the format of it really helps figure out, well, what am I reading here? And I think that that will be clarified once you look at the text selections for today. And these text selections are things that you've already heard me read to you before. They are from that Weird But True book that I was adjusting, or not adjusting, sorry, I'm adjusting that I was reading to you every day. These texts are quick, short, fast, one paragraph that we can really get into why did the author write these by looking at these things. The text features, the big idea, and detail, and format. Number 1, I want you to stop and I want you to listen to me read the first paragraph, the first excerpt from this book aloud. It is one thing I've read to you, and it's about the lightning strikes. The lightning strikes in Sydney, Australia, I believe. So stop. I guess don't stop the video. Just I'm going to stop. You're going to cut to a segment of me reading. Then you're going to hop back in to see this lovely mug. Ready? Now. You wash, I'll dry. There are 16 million thunderstorms on Earth every year. In January 2010, a man in Sydney, Australia, was struck by lightning while he was doing the dishes at the kitchen sink. During the same storm, lightning entered another home through an open window and set the curtains on fire. I trust you all committed every line of that excerpt to memory and are now ready to discuss what it is we will be talking about. And what it is, again, author's purpose. You can infer. You can figure out, why was this text written? What's the point of this? What's this dude trying to do? All right? So the first thing I want to talk about and look at is the text features. And I stop and I notice the title. The title, this little segment has a title, and it is You Wash, I'll Dry. That's an interesting detail. And the title actually kind of goes with what the whole meaning, the main idea of the passage, but we'll talk about main idea later. We're just trying to figure out, why did the author write this? Why did they say, you wash, I'll dry? At the bottom of the page it says, weird but true. Weird but true. And then underneath weird but true, it's numbered. A 1 in a circle. Okay. So you wash, I'll dry. Weird but true, numbered 1. You're my number 1. And something else on there that really catches the eye right away is there's a picture of an angry storm cloud. Kind of like, okay, picture of an angry storm cloud. And then I'm going to start thinking about the details of the text. For instance, it starts off by telling us there are 16 million thunderstorms a year. That's a whole lot of thunderstorms. I mean, what do we see in a year? Like, 10, 20, if that many? The author, or the person who wrote this passage, they say January 2010, so 10 years ago is when it took place, and it takes place in Sydney, Australia. So that's a big idea and a detail. That's a detail about the big idea. When and where it's taking place. And then we're going to stop and look at what else is it telling us? What are other details from this passage? Well, it talks about a person being struck by lightning while doing the dishes, and how lightning entered another home. That's from that same storm. Entered another home and caught it on fire. That's messed up. How does that even happen? Okay, so I've got all my details. And these are just details of that small little passage. It's not even that long, like 5 sentences, if that. And I was able to use my thinking voice. I used my reading voice, stopped my thinking voice, and thought about these details. And I pulled all those little details out just from that one little page. And I'm going to make some connections here. So I see that it's numbered 1. And that makes me think of a list of things. And I'm using the pink sticky notes to represent what's going on in my brain when I read these details. What kind of connections am I making? And I'm using my background knowledge. I know text features are like numbers and words. And numbers and words at the bottom, they're like a text feature. So it makes me think of a list, and there are numbers and words at the bottom of the text feature. So that's the number 1 and weird but true. Makes me think of a list. There's just a number 1 right there. And then I'm also going to pull into my text features the title. You wash, I'll dry. That's the title of the piece, right? That's a text feature. A title is a text feature. So if I know that's a text feature, you wash, I'll dry, is this about dishes? If I think about I'm going to pull the title here. This reminds me of something bad about to happen. If I think about the picture of the angry storm cloud, that's another text feature, but it's a picture, and it makes me think that something's about to happen. It's an angry storm cloud. I'm going to activate my background knowledge. What usually happens when you see an angry storm cloud about to happen? Think about comics you may have read, video games you've played, movies you've watched, even seeing a storm in real life. But I'm talking more about the icon in the actual article, where it's angry storm cloud. And it looks like it's about to unleash havoc. And then I'm going to think about some of the more specific details. And I think about January 2010. I think about Sydney, Australia being pointed out. And I think about 16 million thunderstorms. Those are some really specific numbers and specific places. So they go together. In my head, I kind of lump those together because they are really specific pieces of information, really specific pieces of data that relate to the story, because the story happens January 2010 in Sydney, Australia, and it starts off telling us about the number of thunderstorms in the year. And then these last two details that I pulled out of the text. These last two say lightning struck by lightning while doing dishes. Somebody was struck by lightning while doing dishes. I can't even imagine. I was just doing dishes yesterday with my 2-year-old daughter. She was standing up there helping me. And I can't imagine if we were both there. And then lightning entered another home and caught it on fire. What? Is that even possible? So true events that happened at the same date and place. It's crazy, isn't it? So what is the author's purpose? Why was the author writing this? Was this to persuade us? No, that is not. None of that. None of those details I've put together. None of those connections I made me think that he was trying to persuade me that storms were a good or a bad thing. There's nothing in there either way saying you don't like storms, you better go. You could, I think, and this is where sometimes there's a gray area, you could maybe make an argument that this is an entertaining piece because it's kind of entertaining in that it's an interesting fact. It's an interesting piece of information. But there's nothing entertaining about somebody losing their house in real life and somebody getting struck by lightning while doing the dishes. So this is more of an informative piece. The author is trying to inform us by telling us what is going on with what happened with this one. There's 16 million thunderstorms a year, but this one storm happened to strike somebody with lightning while they're doing dishes, of all things, and the same storm had a lightning bolt get in someone's house, catch it on fire. That's the author informing us what can happen with lightning, the craziness of a lightning storm, a thunderstorm. Now we're going to do another one, and I want you to really follow along and participate, and it's along the same vein. Remember, these tales are all kind of about the same topic for a few, then it switches up topic, because we started off with lightning, then it went to fossilized dinosaur poop. All right, so listen to the read aloud, or me reading the next one, and this one's even shorter, but we're still going to pull this rich information from it and put together an inference about why did the author write this piece? Don't answer that. The most common victims of indoor lightning strikes are people who are talking on the phone during a storm. Landline telephones conduct electricity. By now, I trust you have listened to me read the next excerpt. And that next excerpt, like I said, it's real short, but I'm still able to pull a few good details out of something like that to help me think about the author's purpose. Now remember, we're using text features, the big idea and details, and the format. Now look at the format of this book again, okay? And I look at it and I see one thing that's kind of a text feature and part of the format. The way that number 2 is in a circle down there, like the 1 of the previous passage, right? But I also see something, and I'm going to connect it to the previous passage where we had the angry storm cloud, like, rrr. And first off, the title. The text feature on this is the title. Don't answer that. Okay? Don't answer that. But also that kind of, that dude on the phone, the little picture, he's kind of leering, like, rrr. So I think of those and I go, wow, it's got to be about phones. Don't answer that. The guy on a phone. But did you know lightning could strike indoors? That is a fun fact. Lightning strikes indoors. That's a detail. And people on phones get struck more often. People on phones get struck more often. Now, if you're like me, what do you think about that? People on phones get struck more often. Well, Mr. Royans, I've never seen one of those before because nobody really uses landlines anymore, do they? So that's some of the details. Those are inferences. Those are details, but they're also kind of inferences because... Oh, hold on. Drop my sticky note. First off, the number 2 in the circle there confirms a notion about list in this book. The text feature, the way it is set up, that is a text feature, the number 2. This is the fun fact number 2 of this story, right? And then I'm making an inference with the title of the passage, don't answer that, and like I said, that kind of leering dude on the phone. And that makes me think, right away, just seeing those two things, those text features, the picture and the title, that makes me think it's something bad with phones, right? And I'm thinking if I was using a landline and there's a lightning storm, I'm going to get off there. I'm going to get off the landline when lightning strikes. But here's another inference I had while reading this. And maybe a couple of you had the same thought when you thought about landlines. But cell phones have saved lives, right? Because if people are getting shocked when they're on the landlines, if we're using cell phones, hey, nobody's getting shocked by lightning. So I'd be curious to look up the number of people that have been struck by lightning since landlines have gone on the downside, on the downturn. I'm sure a few of you still have a landline at home. I mean, I know a few people that still do, but I got rid of mine like 10, 12 years ago. So I'm going to connect these details to the inferences I had. Now remember, the inferences are represented by the pink sticky notes. So number 2, or the number 2 in a circle, that just confirms my notion about this book being a list, right? And looking at the title, don't answer that, and the dude on the phone, that really made me think that this has to do with phones. Something bad happens with phones, right? Lightning strikes indoors. So when lightning strikes, you get off that landline. And people on phones get struck most often. But my other main inference I had from this, and the main takeaway, I mean, maybe I'd have to look at the year this book was written, when they put some of these details in, but nobody really uses landlines anymore. So cell phones have saved lives, to an extent. Well, they probably, hurt some lives in the process. So, once again, those details combined with my inferences, my thoughts while reading it, reading and thinking voice, author's purpose. I can infer why this text was written. Was it written to persuade me? No. I mean, maybe you could use it in an argument to persuade people to get rid of their landlines if you were writing something like that. But this doesn't explicitly say, hey, get rid of that landline or else you're going to get struck by lightning. Here's why. It's not to entertain, because it's not entertaining to read about people getting hit by lightning while on the phone. That's not cool. So it's informational. It's, once again, weird but true. Informational text written by the author. That is why the author wrote this, to inform us. Inform us a fun fact about Why lightning strikes somebody if they're on their landline. So, text features, the details, and the format help you figure out why the text was written. All right?